Hey gamers, it's Wick here. I am so happy to be here today with you and bring on the channel a brand new beginner's guide for an exciting game that has literally kept me glued to the screen lately. I'm speaking of course about Age of Empires 4. It's honestly one of the most beautiful, well-made and stimulating games I've ever played, and I'm sure this game will have a long life like its predecessors. This is the perfect time to start playing Age of Empires. The game officially launched less than 3 months ago and the developers are already doing a great job with the updates. If you are into RTS games like I am, or you're just looking for a game to make you really happy and satisfied, you clicked the right video, because I'm gonna tell you the most important things you need to know to start with the right foot and to be already one step ahead in your understanding of the game mechanics. Enough talk, let's get started. Age of Empires 4 is a real-time strategy game historically set during the Dark Ages, late 5th century, early 6th century, to the High Middle Ages, more or less end of the first half of 13th century. The game gives you the opportunity to play in different modes: single player, multiplayer online, with your friends, against real players or against the AI. The goal of the game is to develop your civilization by proceeding through the ages, upgrade your technology, build your army and defeat the enemies before they defeat you. Depending on the game you pick, there can be different winning conditions: destroying all the enemy's landmarks, occupying all the sacred sites for a certain amount of time, or building and defending a wonder. We will speak more in detail about this topic in future content if you guys like it, so make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe because I have all the intention to cover this game for a long time. The first thing you should do as soon as you open the game is to go through the guided tutorial. Don't skip it, because that will instruct you on basic game mechanics and functions necessary to get familiarity with the interface, in case you have never played this type of games before, and this will be one of the main topics today. You are now about to start your first game. Great. What to do? You need to pick your civilization. More than ever in the Age of Empires franchise, each civilization has its distinctive traits, which I hope to cover in specific videos, and the devs designed a couple of them to be beginners friendly, in particular the English and the French. I do suggest you start with one of the two. For this guide, I will be using the French because I like being able to use cavalry early on in the game to harass the opponent. Let's select a map without water for now, and we keep it concealed, so non-explored, in order to learn from the very beginning how to use your scout, which is probably the most important unit to manage to get an early advantage in the match. One of the best functions of the single player mode, and my first tip for you, is that you can actually select the option to play alone, without any opponent, not even the AI. One of the factors that scares a lot of people in getting into games like this one is the pressure they feel when they need to learn a new game, with new mechanics and new interfaces, while at the same time having to fight the opponents. Playing a game alone with no one other than yourself is a great learning tool that will make you thrive at your own pace, without any external pressure. In this way, you will be able to learn more about your starting civilization, the maps you're playing in. You will be free to experiment with the hotkeys, your opening strategies, and the micro optimizations of your gameplay. Let's now start the game, and we will find ourselves with this scenario: a town hall, 1 scout, 1 or 2 ships, and 6 villagers. The ship count may vary according to the map you're playing. You start in the first age, called the Dark Age. The goal here is to reach the second age, or the Feudal Age, as soon as possible, because there is not much you can do if you sit at the first age. Advancing to the Feudal Age will cost you 400 food and 200 gold. Hence, the very first action you need to perform is to left-click with your mouse, drag and select all 6 starting villagers, and then right-click on the ship in front of your town hall to start collecting food. As soon as you do that, you need to queue up the production of 3 new villagers. And here we immediately start talking about hotkeys. In games like this one, the key is efficiency. Every micro optimization that will let you save any fraction of a second in the beginning will be helpful in the long run to outclass your opponents. That's why the thing you want to do is not to manually click on the town hall and then click 3 times on the villager icon on the bottom left, even if that would sound logical and immediate to you. But instead, you should force yourself to use the keyboard shortcuts or hotkeys. To select the town hall, press H on the keyboard, and to produce villagers, press Q as many times as you need. In this case, 3 times. Now you have already queued up your new villagers, and you need to take care of finding new food sources, since the sheep around your town hall will not last for long. Left-click on your scout and start exploring around. An important function of the scout is that if you go near enough a so-called neutral sheep, so a sheep on the map that you are not herding and doesn't belong to anyone, the animal will immediately follow the scout and you will be able to bring them back close to your town hall and transform them in usable food. On every map, there are at least 3 neutral ships around your starting location, sometimes more, so use your scout to get them as soon as possible. A very important advice for you is to queue up the scout movements, so you don't have to stay there and guide him constantly. To do that, you just press and hold Shift on the keyboard, and while you do that, you right-click on the locations you want him to explore next, as many times as you want. Unfortunately, so far this function has no visual feedback, so you will not see any pointers or lines appearing on the screen, but trust me, it works. You can also right-click points while holding Shift on the unexplored minimap on the bottom right of the screen to queue up the scout's movements. A tip in order not to lose track of your scout or to rapidly center the screen on it in case you want to see how many ships he's carrying or where he's at, something that I like to do in the very beginning is to assign him to a key. We'll use a function that we'll greatly take advantage of during battles and troop production, the control groups. After you have selected your scout, press Ctrl+1 and the icon of your scout will appear on the left side of the screen. You have now assigned your scout to the hotkey 1, and you can do that with any other number, so whenever you need to select it, just press 1 and your scout will be selected. If you want to center the screen on it, just press 1 for 2 times and the game will automatically center the camera on your scout. To rapidly switch the view between your scout and your town hall for multitasking, you just need to press H and you will go back to your town hall. Easy, right? After you brought back the ships to your town center, the villagers that were assigned to the food collection of the first ship will automatically start harvesting food from the other ships. A nice tip here that not everybody knows about is that you can actually move the ships around once your scout brings them back to your town. Just select them and move them by right-clicking the spot where you want them to go, in order to have them as close as possible to your town. And why do we do that? Because when villagers gather any type of resources, they need to bring them back to a collection point to deposit them. Your town center is the first drop-off building that you own. And speaking about that building, your town center probably produced your first villager while we were scouting. Each villager will require 50 food and take 20 seconds to produce. With the French, this time is reduced by 10% in the first age, by 15% in the second age, and by 20% in the third and fourth ages. Instead of clicking the first villager, I'm going to give you another hotkey. Use the dot on your keyboard to select an idle villager. Something that I did to avoid the camera to center my screen on the villager each time I select an idle one with the hotkey is to go to the settings, controls, scroll down and at the voice idle villager and idle military, switch from select and center camera, which is the default option, to select only. In this way, if you're looking at something on the map or you center the screen on a location where you want to build something, once you select a villager, your camera will not go back where your villager is. This small optimization can really help you save some precious time. So you select your freshly trained unit and you want now to build a mining camp with it, which is a drop-off building for gold and stone. And you want to do that on your starting gold node. The game will always provide a gold node close to you at the start. It's important you build the mining camp as close as you can to the gold node, because the distance the villagers have to travel to drop off the mined gold is crucial to determine the speed you're accumulating the gold with. Once you get your second villager, you will get close to your population maximum capacity. We have started with 6 villagers and a scout, and this is the unit number 9 out of 10 total capacity. So what you need to do now is build a house. Each house will increase the maximum population by 10 units for a maximum of 200 population. With any sieve, you will need to build houses unless you picked the Mongols, which start directly with 200 population cap, so you will never need to build houses with them. After the house is completed, send that second villager to collect gold. You may have already noticed that the first villager you produced, the one you sent to build the mining camp, automatically started collecting gold. That's because the AI will automatically assign that villager to the corresponding task, so you don't need to manually do it. Remember that in the meantime you should keep producing villagers, and I would say that it's time to queue for a fourth one. Press H and then press Q. Now I suggest you send a third villager that you produced to collect food, while the fourth one goes on gold. After all of this, you will have 7 on food and 3 on gold, and that should be enough to collect the 400 food and 200 gold necessary to go to the Feudal Age. Remember that you can always see how many villagers are collecting each resource on the box at the bottom left corner of the screen. The number in brackets indicates the number of villagers assigned. Once you have your requirements stored to advance your age, the circle with the age number will light up on the top, and you will need a villager to build a landmark, which once completed will bring you to the next age. Each age progression will be completed when the corresponding landmark has been built, which, if you remember, it's also one of the winning conditions of the game. But you don't have any free villagers to build your landmark. We produced 4 villagers so far. Should we have produced more? Not necessarily. Part of the micromanagement of the opening for this game is to know when to remove your villagers from the collection and when to assign them to other tasks. That's why once you reach the resource requirement, you left-click and drag on 3 or 4 of the villagers collecting food and then press T or click the number 2 in Roman characters here. This will always bring up a choice between an economic and military landmark, which you need to pick basing on your necessity and your game strategy, but mostly depending on the civilization you are playing. For example, we are now playing the French. This civ heavily relies on the cavalry for the very beginning, and one of the advantages is that if you build the military landmark, the School of Cavalry, you will immediately have a place where to produce your first knights, without having to build a stable, and the production of those units will also be 20% faster than a regular stable. So let's select the School of Cavalry and let's build it somewhere here. Another tip, it's important you leave space around your town center for later, so you don't want to build houses and your landmark so attached to your town hall, because once you exhaust the natural food supplies, it's important you have place where to build farms to produce your food, and those farms need to be really close to your drop-off point, so your town center. Assigning more than one villager to construct something is important for advancing age or to rush the build of a defensive structure, like an outpost in case you get some early aggression from your opponents. But remember that the building time does not increase exponentially but logarithmically. This means that if you use a second villager to build your School of Cavalry, for example, the construction time will not be halved, but reduced to 75%. The rule of thumb is that each villager will be 3 times as effective as the following one assigned to the task, so to reduce the construction time to 50% you will need 4 villagers, hence why I suggested to assign about 3 or 4 of them to build your School of Cavalry. Assigning more than that will just lead you to diminishing returns. I have made a graphic for you to visually see what's happening in case you assign more villagers to build your second age landmark, with a table that indicates how many seconds the building will require to complete basing on the assigned villagers. I color the curve with different colors to indicate which is the best number of units to assign to the task. Important note, while doing this, make sure your town center is not idle and keeps producing villagers. I am myself new to the game, I'm talking, I'm recording, so I may not be super efficient. But it's time to build a lumber camp, because you will need wood in this age, and build the lumber camp as close as you can to the starting woods. Keep producing villagers and assign them to the wood collection. Instead of clicking the villagers or selecting them one by one and then right-clicking the trees, you just want to press H, select your town center, queue up as many villagers you need on the wood production with Q, and then right-click on the woods while you have your town hall still selected. This line will appear, which will indicate that any unit produced from this building from now on will go there or will take on that task. The color of the flagged line will be blue if the waypoint you selected is a resource type, otherwise it will be golden if it's any other point on the map. You can apply the flagging concept to any building really, for example when you produce your military units, to send them directly on the point you need, but we will speak about it in other videos. Now you also want to take advantage of the natural food sources close to you, and you want to collect those before the enemy has the chance to attack you. Usually close to your town center you will find a group of deers and some berry bushes. There are infinite ways to deal with the opening strategy, depending on who you're facing, the civilization you are using, and so many other factors. That's the beauty of this game, the only limit is your creativity. It could be a good idea, for example, to build mills in each one of those spots in order to have very close drop-off points for your resources. Depending on the map you're playing and or the aggression of your enemy, you can perform now a different number of actions. Typical actions include producing a few knights for early protection for the French, building a blacksmith to start improving your military technology, constructing an archery range to train a few archers, and or dropping off an outpost in sensitive locations in order to counteract an early enemy aggression. A few important tips for you. If you're under enemy aggression and you haven't yet trained some units to defend yourself, you have a few options. First of all, you need to prevent your villagers from getting killed. That would be a major setback. Select all of your unprotected villagers and press G. Thanks to the Seek Shelter function, they will automatically seek repair in the nearest garrisonable building, which in this case would be your town hall. This is not necessarily a defensive move. If your enemy is scouting your territory and comes inadvertently close to your town hall, the town hall will start shooting arrows, and one more arrow for each villager garrisoned inside. A good move to capitalize on this enemy's mistake is to quickly select and move your villagers inside your town hall to try and kill that scout. In this way, all of the ships that are moving around with him and the scout itself will be lost. If you find yourself in the position of losing a scout, remember that you can press H to go to your town hall and then press W to produce a new scout. That will cost 60 food and take 18 seconds to train. After you successfully garrisoned your villagers for defensive or offensive purposes, you can press F to ungarrison them, or even better, you can press D to have them return to work or to previous tasks. Sometimes that function is not perfect, so always keep an eye out on idle villagers. I remember you can look at the number on the side of your population count to see if there are any idle villagers at all and press the dot to select those and put them to work. Another important detail about an early defense structure, the outpost. Building an outpost is not enough to grant yourself protection. This building will not shoot any arrows to the enemy unless the corresponding technology has been researched. That's why, as soon as you build your first outpost, make sure to click it and research the arrow slits technology. In this way, your outposts will start shooting one arrow at a time even if it's empty, plus one extra arrow per unit garrisoned, which can also be a villager, as we said. Another precious suggestion I can give you is to read the articles and details about each civilization that you can find in the Learn page. Here, the developers have done a great job in putting at your disposal a lot of information about each civilization, their specific traits, the technology trees, the unique military units, the exclusive buildings. This is a page that you should really consider reading, and you should return to it multiple times, because even if I do suggest to pick a starting civilization at the beginning and stick to it until you acquire enough experience with it, you may also want to know which threat you are facing when you're playing against a specific civilization. That's why I suggest you start adding more AI opponents with a different civilization each time in order to understand better what you should do in different situations. That's it for today's video. You have now learned all the raw basics to properly start a game in Age of Empires 4. But as you can imagine, this game is very complex and articulated, and we will break down many more topics in the content to come. If you enjoyed the first episode about Age of Empires 4, please remember that you can support the channel for free just by leaving a like and subscribing, and you can activate bells for notification not to miss out to any future content. I will see you on the next one. Ciao!